Hello, and thank you for choosing this heartfelt, modest historical romance by C.E. Mallery. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support is appreciated and helps us continue bringing you more captivating tales, completely free. In each story are bits and pieces of true accounts of my personal life. So grab a pillow and make yourself at home and let your imagination transport you to a world of love, courage, and adventure in a time long past. Enjoy the story. Sadie Royal stood at the parlor window, arms folded tight across her chest, watching the wind whip dust across the main street of Garnertown. The prairie sun was relentless, and the sky seemed to stretch forever, but Sadie's thoughts were 1,000 miles away, back in Boston, where the air was thick with salt and the streets were never empty. Otis Royal, her husband, bustled in from the porch, boots thudding on the polished floorboards. "You're going to wear a hole in that rug, Sadie. You've been pacing since breakfast." She turned, her chin lifted. "I can't help it, Otis. This place is so wild. I swear the wind here could blow the hat off a statue. And the dust. I've never swept so much in my life." Otis grinned, brushing a smudge of dirt from his sleeve. "You wanted a grand house, and you got one. Biggest place in Garnertown and the only one with a chandelier. I'd say you're the queen of the prairie." Sadie huffed, but a smile tugged at her lips. "A queen without a court, or a decent bakery, or a single neighbor who knows the difference between a salad fork and a dessert fork." He crossed the room and took her hands, his eyes warm. "You're doing just fine, Sadie. Folks here are different, but they're good people. Give them a chance." She squeezed his fingers, her voice softening. "I know. I miss home. I miss the bustle, the music, the little pizzeria we used to go to, the way the city lights looked from our window at night. I miss all of it. And I miss Thomas." Otis's face grew serious. "You'll find him, Sadie. That advertisement you placed, someone will see it. He'll write back." She let out a shaky laugh. "It's been months, Otis. Maybe he's forgotten me. Maybe he doesn't want to be found." He shook his head. "Not a chance. You Royals are stubborn as mules. If he's out there, he'll come." Sadie moved to the sideboard and picked up the Boston photograph of her and Thomas as children, their faces smudged with jam, their arms around each other. "We were inseparable, you know, until the fire. I was 5. He was 8. I still remember the way he shouted for me, even as the smoke filled the room. I have always had dreams about that night." Otis wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You're not alone anymore, Sadie. You've got me. And this house, and—" He paused, glancing at the ornate settee she'd insisted on shipping from Boston. "All the furniture and fine furnishings a woman could ever want." She laughed, the sound bright and clear. "You mean all the furniture you nearly broke your back hauling up the porch steps?" He grinned. "You're worth every ache. You should have seen the look on old Mrs. Jenkins's face when she saw that velvet sofa. I think she's still talking about it." Sadie laughed. "She's talking about how I set the table with 6 forks for Sunday supper. I heard her say that Boston woman's got more silverware than sense." Otis chuckled. "Well, you do have more forks than the general store, but you've also got more heart than anyone I know." She turned to face him, her eyes shining. "Thank you, Otis. For bringing me here, I'm sure I'll eventually fit in somewhere. I know I'm impossible sometimes, but—" He kissed her forehead. "You're never impossible, just strong and spirited." She grinned. "That's one way to put it." A knock at the door interrupted them. Sadie's heart leapt. "Maybe it's a letter. Maybe it's from Thomas." Otis opened the door to reveal the postman, a lanky young man with a crooked smile. "Morning, Mrs. Royal. Got a package for you. No letters today, I'm afraid." Sadie's face fell, but she managed a polite smile. "Thank you, Mr. Carter." He tipped his hat. "You let me know if you need anything. Folks say you make the best lemon cake this side of the Mississippi." Otis winked at her as the postman left. "See? You're already famous." She sighed, closing the door. "I'd trade all the lemon cake in Kansas for a letter from Thomas." Otis pulled her close again. "It'll come, Sadie. Until then, you've got me, a house full of furniture, and a town full of people just waiting to be charmed by you." She smiled, her spirits lifting. "Well, I suppose I could teach them the difference between a salad fork and a dessert fork. Someone has to bring a little civilization to the prairie." Otis laughed, spinning her around the parlor. "That's my girl. Boston's loss is Kansas's gain." As the sun dipped low and the prairie wind rattled the windows, Sadie thought to herself, "This is my new life now, not as grand as the one I left behind, but maybe one day soon I'll have my whole family together again." The morning sun spilled through the lace curtains, making patterns across the kitchen table. Sadie sat with her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, her gaze fixed on the envelope in front of her. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the name, Thomas Royal, was unmistakable. Otis strode in, his suspenders half on and his hair still damp from the pump outside. "You're staring at that letter like it's about to bite you, Sadie." She looked up, her heart fluttering. "I can't help it. I've waited so long for this. What if it's not really him? What if he doesn't want to see me?" Otis grinned, grabbing a biscuit from the tin. "Well, there's only one way to find out. Hurry, open it. I'm dying of curiosity over here." Sadie shot him a look, but her lips twitched. She slid her finger under the flap and unfolded the letter, her hands trembling. She read aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dear Sadie, I saw your notice in the Topeka Weekly. If you are my sister, I am alive and living near Topeka. I remember the fire and I remember you. Please come. Thomas." Otis whooped, nearly dropping his biscuit. "Well, I'll be. It's him. Sadie, you did it." She pressed the letter to her chest, tears springing to her eyes. "I can't believe it. After all these years." Otis came around the table and pulled her into a bear hug. "We're going to find your brother, Sadie. I promise." She laughed, wiping her eyes. "You make it sound so easy. It's a long way to Topeka, and I haven't been farther than the next county since we got here." Otis winked. "That's what wagons are for. Besides, I could use a little adventure. Maybe we'll see some buffalo, or outlaws, or, heaven help us, a Kansas thunderstorm." Sadie rolled her eyes. "If we see outlaws, you're hiding behind me." He puffed out his chest. "I'll have you know, Mrs. Royal, I'm a crack shot with a slingshot, and I can talk a coyote out of its dinner." She giggled, the tension easing from her shoulders. "I suppose I'll have to pack extra biscuits then, for the coyotes." Otis grinned. "And don't forget the coffee. I can't face the wild prairie without my morning cup." They spent the rest of the day preparing for the journey. Sadie packed a trunk with clothes, a quilt, and a faded photograph of her and Thomas as children. Otis loaded the wagon with supplies: flour, beans, salt pork, and a tin of Sadie's famous blackberry jam. As they worked, Otis kept up a steady stream of chatter. "You know, I heard tell there's a town out west where the mayor's a chicken. True story. Maybe we'll pass through." Sadie snorted. "If the mayor's a chicken, I suppose the sheriff's a goat?" "Don't laugh," Otis said, wagging a finger. "That goat's got a mean left hook." By evening the wagon was ready, and Sadie stood in the doorway looking out at the endless prairie. Otis came up behind her, slipping an arm around her waist. "You nervous?" he asked softly. She nodded. "A little, but mostly I'm excited. I never thought I'd see Thomas again." Otis kissed her temple. "We'll find him. And when we do, you can tell him all about how you married the handsomest, bravest man in Kansas." She grinned. "I'll tell him you're the best biscuit thief in 3 counties. He laughed, squeezing her tight. "Deal." As the stars blinked to life above the prairie, Sadie felt hope blooming in her chest. Tomorrow they would set out on the journey of a lifetime, together with laughter and love lighting the way. The prairie dawn was a pale gold, the kind that made the world look gentle and new. Sadie Royal sat beside Otis on the wagon seat, her bonnet tied tight against the wind, her heart fluttering with a mix of hope and nerves. The wagon creaked along the rutted trail, the horses' hooves thudding a steady rhythm. Otis glanced over, his eyes crinkling with a smile. "You're quiet this morning, Sadie. That's not like you." She managed to laugh, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. I'm just thinking. About Thomas. About what I'll say if we find him. About how you snore so loud you scared off the coyotes last night. Otis grinned, nudging her with his elbow. You love my snoring. It's the sound of a man who works hard. She rolled her eyes, but her smile was soft. It's the sound of a man who eats too much pie before bed. He laughed, reaching over to squeeze her hand. You make the best pie in Kansas. I'd eat it every night if you'd let me. Sadie squeezed back, her heart swelling with affection. You're impossible, Otis Royal, but I love you for it. The wagon jolted over a rock, and Otis winced, shifting in his seat. Remind me why we didn't just stay in Boston, where the roads are paved and the only thing you have to dodge is a streetcar? Sadie's eyes sparkled. Because you promised me adventure and a house with a porch big enough for dancing. He grinned. I did, didn't I? Well, I'd build you a palace if I could. She leaned her head on his shoulder, letting the prairie wind carry her worries away. For a moment, everything felt perfect. Then, without warning, Otis jerked upright, his face contorted in pain. Sadie! He gasped, clutching his leg. She looked over, alarmed. Otis? What is it? He tried to speak, but his breath came in ragged gasps. Sadie's eyes darted down and saw, to her horror, a rattlesnake coiled beneath the wagon seat, its tail still twitching. 2 angry red punctures marked Otis's calf. Oh no! Otis! Scrambling to pull him away from the snake. Her hands shook as she grabbed a stick and shoved the creature out of the wagon, her heart pounding in her ears. Otis's face was pale, sweat beading on his brow. It got me real good, Sadie. She tore a strip from her petticoat and tied it above the bite, her fingers fumbling. Hold on, Otis. Just hold on, I'll fix this, She tied the strip around his leg carefully and prayed, Lord, no. His lips trembled. You always were the bossy one. Remember when you made me eat mud pies in Boston? She choked out a laugh, tears streaming down her cheeks. You said they tasted better than anybody's. He squeezed her hand, his grip already weakening. He tried to talk, but all he got out was a whisper. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Sadie. Don't you forget it. Don't you dare talk like that, she whispered fiercely. You're going to be just fine. I'll get help. He shook his head, his eyes soft. You're strong, Sadie. Stronger than you know. Promise me you'll keep going. Promise me you'll find Thomas. She pressed her forehead to his, sobbing. I promise. But I need you, Otis. I need you. I need you. He brushed a tear from her cheek, his touch feather light. You'll always have me, right here. He tapped her heart, then closed his eyes. His arms fell down and slid alongside her as she held him tightly. Sadie clung to him, rocking back and forth as the prairie wind howled around them. Just then he whirled silent. The whole world felt big and empty. She sat there holding him till the sun set. The only thing she knew was to pray. As darkness fell, she grabbed the reins to the wagon and just kept going. I'll keep going, Otis. I'll find Thomas. The prairie was silent, save for the whisper of the wind and the distant cry of a coyote. Sadie wiped her tears, squared her shoulders, directed the wagon, alone, but determined to face whatever the Wild West had left for her. The prairie seemed endless, a sea of gold and green that stretched to the horizon. Sadie Royal's hands were raw from gripping the reins, her lips cracked and dry. The wagon creaked and groaned with every mile, and the ache in her heart, a heavy throb, the kind that only comes with loss. She hadn't eaten since the day before, and the only sound was the wind and the tired plodding of the horse. As the sun climbed higher, Sadie spotted a cloud of dust in the distance. Her heart leapt. Maybe it was a traveler, someone who could help. She got excited. She hadn't seen anyone for what seemed to be forever. She straightened her bonnet and tried to smooth her dress, determined to look strong, not desperate. But as the riders drew closer, her hope turned to dread. There were 3 of them, all men, their faces half hidden by bandanas. They rode up fast, circling the wagon like wolves. The tallest one, with a battered hat and a pistol at his hip, called out, "Well, what do we have here? A lady all alone on the prairie?" Sadie sat up straighter, her voice steady. "I'm just passing through. I don't want any trouble." The second man, younger and wiry, grinned. "Trouble's already found you, ma'am. Hand over your purse and any food you got." Sadie's hands trembled, but she glared at him. "I have nothing worth stealing. My husband is—" Her voice caught, and she swallowed hard. "He's gone. I'm just trying to get to my brother." The third outlaw with a missing finger leaned in close. "We're not here for stories, lady. We're here for what you got." She reached for her small satchel, her jaw clenched. "Take it then. There's not much left. Just let me be." The tall one snatched the bag from her hands, rifling through it. "Biscuits, a little money, and what's this? A locket?" He dangled it in front of her, smirking. Sadie's eyes flashed. "That's all I have left of my family. Please, just leave me that." He shrugged, pocketing the locket anyway. "Life's hard out here, sweetheart. You'll learn." The wiry man climbed into the wagon, tossing out her blanket and the last of her bread. "You travel light, don't you?" Sadie's anger flared. "You're nothing but cowards, all three of you. Stealing from a woman alone, does that make you feel like men?" The four-fingered man laughed, a harsh sound. "You got a mouth on you, don't you, lady? Maybe too much for your own good." The tall one raised a hand. "That's enough. We got what we came for. Let's ride." They never knew her husband lay underneath the blanket. They turned their horses, leaving Sadie in a swirl of dust, her wagon lighter and her heart heavier. She watched them go, her fists clenched in her lap. When the dust settled, Sadie climbed down from the wagon, gathering what little the outlaws had thrown out: a single can of beans, a torn blanket, and her Bible. She pressed the book to her chest, fighting back tears. She looked up at the sky, her voice trembling. Praying, searching herself deeply. Otis was gone, and now everything else. She promised the Lord she wouldn't lose hope if he gave her the strength. Her stomach growled, but she was determined and climbed back onto the wagon seat. The horse looked back at her, as if asking what to do next. "We keep going," she whispered, stroking its mane. "We keep going no matter what." The prairie looked as though it was on fire as the sun dipped low. Red, angry streaks filled the sky. Sadie pressed on, hungry, exhausted, but unbroken. She would find her brother. She would survive. Boston raised one tough woman, and she would never let the Wild West steal her spirit. The prairie road narrowed as Sadie Royal's weary horse pulled the battered wagon into a valley of cottonwoods and wildflowers. The sign at the edge of town read Eagle Springs, population 312, and for the first time in days, Sadie felt a relief to see a town with people in it. The town was small but tidy, with whitewashed storefronts, a church steeple, and a creek that sparkled in the afternoon sun. It was a beautiful little town, she thought. She guided the wagon down the main street, drawing curious glances from townsfolk. A little girl in braids waved shyly. Sadie waved back with a tired smile, her heart pounding. She stopped in front of a brick building with a wooden sign. "Sheriff's office." Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of coffee and leather. A tall, handsome sort of a man with broad shoulders and a star pinned to his vest looked up from his desk. His hair was dark, his eyes a clear blue, and tilted his head with a gentle smile when he saw her. "Ma'am, you look like you've come a long way," he said, standing. "I'm Sheriff Clint Barton. What can I do for you?" Sadie tried to steady her voice. "Sheriff," and just started to cry. I was robbed on the trail. 3 men. They took everything I had left. My husband, he's gone. I'm just trying to find my brother." Clint taking a deep breath. "I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am. Please have a seat." He pulled out a chair and poured her a cup of coffee. "You're safe here. Can you tell me what happened?" She sat, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "They came out of nowhere, took my food, my money, even my locket I've had since I was little. I begged them to leave it, but they just laughed. I don't know what I would have done if they'd stayed any longer." Clint nodded, his eyes kind but sharp. I understand. You did the right thing coming here. We'll do our best to find those men. She seemed to let out a sigh of relief, though you couldn't tell. Just then, the door banged open, and a wiry man with a mop of sandy hair and a crooked nose burst in, nearly tripping over his own boots. "Sheriff, I just saw Mrs. Jenkins chasing her rooster down Main Street again." "Oh." He stopped short, noticing Sadie. "Well, howdy, ma'am. I'm Deputy Hank. Don't mind me, I'm just the comic relief around here." Sadie couldn't help a small laugh. "Nice to meet you, Deputy. I could use a little comic relief." Hank winked. "You came to the right place. We've got the best pie, the worst coffee, and the friendliest chickens in Kansas. You'll fit right in." Clint shot Hank a look, but there was a smile tugging at his lips. "Hank, why don't you see about getting Mrs. Royal's horse stabled and her wagon unloaded? And maybe find her something to eat that isn't beans out of a can." Hank saluted, nearly knocking his hat off. "Yes, sir. Right away, ma'am. And don't worry, I'll keep an eye out for any suspicious chickens." Sadie's shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. She looked at Clint, her voice soft. "Thank you, Sheriff. I didn't know where else to go." Clint met her gaze, steady and reassuring. "You're safe here, Sadie. Eagle Springs takes care of its own. We'll help you get back on your feet, and we'll do everything we can to find your brother." As Hank bustled out, whistling a tune and muttering about outlaw roosters, Sadie felt just a little bit of hope. Eagle Springs was a beautiful small town, and the people there seemed just as beautiful. The morning was soft and gray as Sadie stood at the edge of the small cemetery on the hill above Eagle Springs. The townsfolk had gathered quietly, hats in hand, as the preacher spoke gentle words over Otis's grave. Sadie clutched a single wildflower, her heart aching with every syllable. When the last prayer faded, she knelt and pressed the flower into the fresh earth, whispering, "Thank you for loving me, Otis. I'll carry you with me always." Sheriff Clint Barton lingered nearby, his presence a silent comfort. When the others drifted away, he offered his arm. "Let me walk you home, Sadie." She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Clint. I don't know what I'd do without you in this town." He smiled gently. "You're not alone here. Eagle Springs looks after its own. Plus, you're one of us now." The days that followed were a blur of sorrow and small kindnesses. Mrs. Jenkins brought over a basket of warm bread and a jar of honey. The blacksmith's wife, Mrs. O'Malley, insisted on teaching Sadie how to mend a fence. Even Deputy Hank, with his endless jokes and clumsy charm, managed to coax a few smiles from her. One afternoon, as Sadie tried to sweep the porch of her little rented house, Hank appeared with a lopsided grin and a broom of his own. "You know, Sadie, I once swept the whole jailhouse with a chicken feather. Took me 3 days and the chicken's still mad about it." She laughed, the sound surprising her. "I suppose you're going to offer to help?" "Only if you promise not to make me eat any more of Mrs. Jenkins' pickled eggs. I'm still recovering from the last batch." Clint stopped by every evening, sometimes with news about the outlaws and her brother, sometimes just to sit with her on the porch and watch the sun set over the prairie. He listened as she talked expressively about Boston, about Otis, about the ache of missing her old life and the fear of starting a new one. One evening, as pink and gold scattered the sky, Sadie turned to him. "I never thought I'd find a place that felt like home again. But Eagle Springs, it's different. People here are nice, people here care, even if they do have a strange fondness for pickled eggs." Clint laughed, his eyes warm. "I gotta tell you, we're a peculiar bunch, but we mean well. You'll fit in just fine around here. You're a strong kind of lady, Sadie. I want you to know I don't see that every day." She looked at him, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. "Thank you, Clint, for everything." He tipped his hat, a soft smile on his lips. "Anytime, Sadie. That's what friends are for." As the days turned to weeks, Sadie found herself settling into the rhythms of frontier life. She learned to bake bread in a wood stove, to patch her own roof, and to laugh again, sometimes at Hank's jokes, sometimes at her own mistakes. The pain of loss was still there, with an ache that was great. But so was hope, growing quietly in the gentle heart of Eagle Springs. The days in Eagle Springs grew warmer, and the prairie grass swayed in the breeze. But not all was peaceful in town. Word spread that Deputy Hank was heading out to track the outlaws who'd robbed Sadie, and the news set the townsfolk buzzing. Some admired his courage, others whispered that it was a fool's errand. On the morning of his departure, Hank swaggered down Main Street, his hat cocked at a jaunty angle and his rifle slung over his shoulder. He stopped in front of Sadie's porch, where she was hanging laundry in the sun. "Wish me luck, Sadie," he called, grinning. "If I don't come back, tell Mrs. Jenkins she can have my collection of rooster feathers." Sadie smiled, folding a sheet. "You'll come back, Hank. Just don't try to outsmart them. You're not as clever as you think." He clutched his chest in mock offense. "You wound me, ma'am. I'll have you know I once outwitted a raccoon for a whole pie." Clint appeared, arms crossed, watching Hank with a mixture of fondness and exasperation. "Just bring yourself back in one piece, Hank, and don't go chasing any raccoons this time." Hank tipped his hat. "No promises, Sheriff. Raccoons are wily." He winked at Sadie, then strode off, whistling a tune that echoed down the street. As the dust settled, Sadie felt a pang of worry. She turned to Clint, her brow furrowed. "Will he be all right out there alone?" Clint nodded, though his eyes were troubled. "Hank's got more grit than sense, but he knows the land. He'll be careful." But as the days passed, Sadie found herself facing a different kind of trouble. The women of Eagle Springs, who'd once welcomed her with smiles and baskets of bread, now watched her with narrowed eyes and whispered behind her back. At the general store, Mrs. O'Malley leaned in close to Mrs. Jenkins, her voice low but sharp. "I heard the sheriff's been calling on her every evening," Mrs. O'Malley said, glancing at Sadie as she weighed flour. Mrs. Jenkins pursed her lips. "She's not even from here, and already she's got Clint's attention. Some women just have a way of making themselves noticed." Sadie pretended not to hear, but the words stung. She paid for her goods and hurried outside, only to find herself face to face with Clara Mayfield, the mayor's daughter, who was known for her beauty and her ambition. "Sadie," Clara said, her smile definitely not genuine. "I hope you're settling in. I imagine it's quite a change from Boston." "It is," Sadie replied, forcing a polite smile. "But the people here have been kind." Clara's eyes flicked to the sheriff, who was talking with the blacksmith across the street. "Some people are just too kind, if you ask me. Eagle Springs is a close-knit town. We look after our own." Sadie met her gaze, refusing to be cowed. "I'm not here to cause any trouble, Clara. I just want to find my brother and make a life for myself." Clara smiled and rolled her eyes. "Of course. But you should know, Clint's always been a favorite around here. Some of us have been waiting a long time for him to notice." Before Sadie could reply, Clint crossed the street, his presence a welcome relief. "Everything all right here, ladies?" he asked, glancing between the two women. "Perfectly fine, Sheriff," Clara said sweetly, then twirled on her heel and walked away. Clint watched her go, then looked at Sadie. "Don't let them get to you. Folks around here can be set in their ways, but they'll come around." Sadie sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I'm not sure they will. I never wanted to be the center of attention." He smiled gently. "You can't help it, Sadie. You're different. You're beautiful and strong, a deadly combination. That scares some people, but it's what I admire most about you." She looked up at him, her heart just stopped for a second. "Thank you, Clint. I just hope I can prove I belong here." He tipped his hat, his eyes warm. "You already do." As the sun dipped low and the prairie glowed gold, Sadie stood on her porch watching the horizon. Trouble might be brewing, but that was okay. She was determined to face it head-on. Eagle Springs was her home now, and she wasn't about to let gossip or jealousy drive her away. The days in Eagle Springs grew longer and brighter, and with each sunrise, Sadie found new ways to prove she belonged. She took on odd jobs, mending clothes for Mrs. O'Malley, helping the school teacher with the children, and even learning to milk cows at dawn with old Mr. Wilkins, who grumbled but secretly admired her determination. One afternoon, Sadie was scrubbing the church steps when Clint strolled by, his hat tipped low against the sun. He paused, watching her work, a smile tugging at his lips. "You know, Sadie, you're making the rest of us look bad," he teased. "If you keep this up, folks will expect me to start scrubbing floors." She looked up, brushing a strand of hair from her face, her cheeks flushed. "I doubt anyone wants to see the sheriff on his knees with a bucket and brush." Clint grinned, stepping closer. "I don't know. I think I'd do just about anything if it made you smile." She laughed, the sound light and easy. "You're not half as charming as you think, Clint Barton." He leaned in, his voice softer. "Maybe not, but I'm twice as stubborn." Their eyes met, and for a moment the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. Sadie felt her heart flutter, a warmth spreading through her chest. She looked away, suddenly shy. "You're trouble, Sheriff," he chuckled. "That's what they tell me." Just then, Hank came barreling around the corner, arms full of eggs and a wild look in his eyes. "Sadie, Sheriff, I need help. Mrs. Jenkins's chickens have staged a coup. I barely escaped with my life." Clint shook his head, grinning. "Go on, Sadie. I'll handle the chickens. You've done enough for one day." But Sadie only laughed, wiping her hands on her skirt. "I think I'd rather face a flock of angry hens than another hour of scrubbing." Together, the three of them wrangled the chickens, Hank providing a running commentary that had Sadie doubled over with laughter. When the last hen was safely corralled, Clint caught Sadie's hand, holding it just a moment longer than necessary. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned lavender, Clint walked Sadie home. They strolled in comfortable silence, the air between them charged with something unspoken. He stopped at her gate, his hand brushing hers. "Sadie, I know you've been through more than most, but I want you to know. I admire you. More than I can say." She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "You make it easier, Clint. Being here, starting over, I never thought I'd feel this way again." He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think about you, Sadie. All the time. I can't help it." She smiled, her heart pounding. "I think about you, too." He reached up, tucking a loose curl behind her ear. "I want to be the man you can lean on, the one who makes you feel safe and happy." She touched his cheek, her voice trembling with hope. "You already do." Clint leaned in, his lips brushing hers in a gentle, lingering kiss. The world seemed to fall away, leaving only the two of them beneath the wide prairie sky. When they finally parted, Sadie laughed softly, her cheeks flushed. "I guess I really am home." Clint grinned, his eyes full of promise. "You are, Sadie, and I'm not letting you go." As she watched him walk away, Sadie felt stronger than she ever had before. The morning sun spilled golden light across Sadie's kitchen table as she opened the letter, her hands trembling with anticipation. The handwriting was unmistakable, her brother Thomas's bold, looping script. She read the words over and over, hardly daring to believe them. He was coming to Eagle Springs. He'd be here in a week. Sadie pressed the letter to her heart, tears springing to her eyes. For so long she'd carried the weight of loss and loneliness, but now hope fluttered inside her like a bird set free. She hurried outside, the letter clutched in her hand, and nearly collided with Clint, who was just coming up the path. "Whoa there, Sadie!" Clint caught her by the shoulders, steadying her. "You look like you've seen a ghost." She laughed, breathless. "Not a ghost, a miracle. My brother's coming. Thomas is coming here to Eagle Springs." Clint's face lit up with a smile. "That's wonderful news. I know how much you've missed him." She nodded, her eyes shining. "I can't believe it. I was starting to think I'd never see him again." Clint squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing gently over her knuckles. "You deserve some happiness, Sadie. I'm glad it's finally finding you." They walked together through the town, Sadie's excitement bubbling over as she told Clint stories about Thomas. How he'd always looked out for her, how he'd taught her to ride, how he'd made her laugh even on the darkest days. Clint listened, his gaze soft and attentive, but Sadie could sense something unspoken in his eyes. That evening, as they sat on her porch watching the sky turn from blue to rose, Clint grew quiet. Sadie glanced at him, her heart suddenly uneasy. "Clint, what is it?" she asked softly. He hesitated, then met her gaze. "I'm happy for you, Sadie, truly. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous. Things are changing. You have family coming and, well, I don't want to lose what we've found together." She reached for his hand, her fingers trembling. "You won't lose me, Clint. I care about you. More than I ever thought I could care for anyone again." He smiled, relief flickering across his face. "I care about you too, Sadie. More than I should, maybe. I think about you all the time. When I'm working, when I'm trying to sleep, I can't get you out of my head." She blushed, her heart racing. "I feel the same, but I'm scared. I lost so much before. I don't know if I can risk my heart again." Clint leaned closer, his voice low and earnest. "I know you're scared. But I'm not Otis, and this isn't Boston. I want to build something real with you, right here, if you'll let me." Sadie looked into his eyes, searching for doubt, but found only warmth and sincerity. "I want that too, Clint. I do. I need time. I need to see my brother, to remember who I was before all the loss." He nodded, understanding. "I'll wait, Sadie, as long as it takes." She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "You're a good man, Clint Barton." He grinned, brushing a kiss across her knuckles. "Don't let that get around. I've got a reputation to uphold." Just then, Hank appeared at the gate, waving a letter of his own. "Sadie! Sheriff! I got a letter from my cousin in Dodge City. He says he's invented a new kind of pie, made with pickled eggs and rhubarb. I told him that's a crime against nature, but he swears it's delicious." Sadie laughed, the tension easing from her shoulders. "Maybe you can serve it at the welcome supper for my brother." Hank groaned. "If you do, I'm skipping town." Clint chuckled, his arm slipping around Sadie's shoulders. "Don't worry, Hank. We'll stick to apple pie." As the stars blinked to life above them, Sadie leaned into Clint's embrace, hope and longing mingling in her heart. Her brother was coming, her future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face whatever came next, with Clint by her side. The day Thomas arrived, Eagle Springs seemed to hold its breath. Sadie stood at the edge of Main Street, her heart pounding as the stagecoach rumbled into town, dust swirling in the late afternoon sun. She scanned the faces of the passengers, her breath catching when she saw him, taller than she remembered, with the same unruly hair and mischievous grin. "Sadie!" Thomas called, leaping from the coach before it had fully stopped. She ran to him, laughter and tears mingling as she threw her arms around his neck. "Thomas, I can't believe you're really here." He hugged her tight, lifting her off her feet. "You didn't think I'd let you have all the adventures, did you?" They pulled apart, both grinning, and Sadie wiped her eyes. "You look older and thinner. Have you been eating at all?" Thomas rolled his eyes. "I've been surviving, not thriving. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Clint approached, tipping his hat. "Welcome to Eagle Springs, Thomas. I'm Clint Barton, the sheriff." Thomas shook his hand, sizing him up with a brother's protective eye. "So you're the one looking after my sister." Clint smiled, unflinching. "I do my best. She's tougher than she looks." Sadie nudged Thomas. "Be nice. Clint's been a good friend to me." Thomas grinned, his eyes twinkling. "I can see that. I hope you're ready for a little competition, Sheriff. I plan to make up for lost time." Clint laughed. "I look forward to it." The next few days were a whirlwind of catching up. Sadie and Thomas spent hours talking. About Boston, about Otis, about the long, lonely months apart. Thomas confessed he'd grown tired of drifting and wanted to put down roots. "I want to stay, Sadie. I want to build something real. Maybe even start a little shop if the town will have me." Sadie beamed. "You'll love it here. The people are good, even if they gossip too much." Thomas raised an eyebrow. Speaking of gossip, I hear you and the sheriff are the talk of the town. Sadie blushed, glancing away. It's nothing. People just like to talk. He grinned. It doesn't look like nothing to me. I saw the way he looks at you. Before Sadie could reply, Clara Mayfield swept up the walk, her dress swirling and her smile sharp. Sadie, I heard your brother arrived. How wonderful, and so handsome, too. Thomas tipped his hat, ever the charmer. Ma'am? Clara turned her attention to Sadie, her voice syrupy sweet. I suppose you'll be spending all your time with family now. The sheriff will have to find someone else to keep him company. Sadie smiled politely. I'm sure Clint can take care of himself. Clara's eyes narrowed just a touch. Of course. Well, I'll let you get back to your reunion. Welcome to Eagle Springs, Thomas. As Clara flounced away, Thomas whistled low. She's a handful. Sadie laughed. You have no idea. That evening, Clint joined them for supper. The three of them sat on the porch, the air warm and filled with the scent of wildflowers. Thomas regaled them with stories from the road, making Sadie laugh until her sides ached. When Thomas excused himself to fetch more lemonade, Clint turned to Sadie, his expression serious. I meant what I said, Sadie. I want to build something real with you. I know things are complicated, but I'm not afraid of a little gossip. She reached for his hand, her voice soft. I'm not either. Not anymore. I want you, Clint. I want this. He smiled, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Then let's not waste any more time. She leaned in, her lips brushing his, and the world seemed to fall away. When they parted, Thomas was standing in the doorway, grinning like a fool. About time, he teased. I was starting to think I'd have to give the sheriff a nudge. Sadie laughed, her cheeks flushed. You're impossible, Thomas winked. That's what big brothers are for. As the stars blinked to life above them, Sadie felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Her brother was home, her heart was full, and for the first time, the future looked bright, no matter what the town might say. The letter from the lawyer in Garnertown arrived on a blustery morning, the kind that made the prairie grass dance and the sky feel endless. Sadie stood on the porch, the paper trembling in her hands. She read the words twice, then a third time, her heart pounding with a mix of relief and finality. The house was sold. Her old life was officially behind her. She found Clint at the edge of town, helping Thomas repair the roof of the old mercantile. Clint looked up as she approached, his eyes searching her face. Well? He asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Sadie smiled, her voice steady. It's done. The house in Garnertown is sold. I'm staying, Clint. I'm choosing Eagle Springs. I'm choosing you. Clint's face broke into a grin, and he jumped down from the ladder, pulling her into his arms. You have no idea how long I've waited to hear you say that. Thomas, perched on the roof, called down, About time. Now maybe Clint can stop moping around like a lovesick pup. Sadie laughed, burying her face in Clint's shoulder. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home now. But as the sun dipped low, a shadow fell over the town. Hank burst into the sheriff's office, breathless and wild-eyed. Clint, Sadie, there's trouble. Riders coming in from the west. I think it's the outlaws, the ones who robbed Sadie. Clint's jaw tightened. How many? 3, maybe 4. Armed. They're asking about Sadie by name. Sadie's heart skipped. Clint turned to her, his voice gentle but firm. You stay here. I'll handle this. She shook her head, determination flashing in her eyes. No, Clint, I'm not running anymore. This is my home. I'm standing with you. He hesitated, then nodded, pride and worry mingling in his gaze. All right, but you stay close. The town gathered in the square, tension thick in the air. The outlaws rode in, their faces hard and eyes cold. The leader, a scar-faced man, dismounted and strode forward. We're looking for Sadie Royal, he called, his voice echoing off the storefronts. Clint stepped forward, hand on his holster. You found her, and you'll answer for what you did. Sadie stood tall beside him, her chin lifted. "You took everything from me once. You won't do it again." The outlaw sneered. "You've got guts, lady, but guts won't save you." Clint's voice was steel. "She's not alone, not anymore." A tense silence fell. Then, with a sudden movement, the outlaw reached for his gun. Clint was faster. In a blur, he drew and fired, sending the man sprawling. The other outlaws hesitated, then turned and fled, chased off by the townsfolk and a whoop from Hank, who brandished a pitchfork with wild abandon. When it was over, Clint turned to Sadie, his hands shaking. "Are you all right?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I am now. Because of you. Because of all of you." He pulled her close, his voice rough with emotion. "I couldn't bear to lose you, Sadie. Not now. Not ever." She smiled through her tears. "You won't. I'm home, Clint. I'm finally home." He kissed her then, right there in the middle of the square, with the whole town watching and cheering. Thomas whooped from the sidelines, and even Hank wiped a tear from his eye, though he claimed it was just dust. As the sun set over Eagle Springs, Sadie knew she had chosen well. She had chosen love, chosen courage, chosen home, and with Clint by her side, she was ready for whatever the future might bring. The prairie was alive with the colors of late summer, wildflowers nodding in the breeze and the sky stretching wide and blue above Eagle Springs. Sadie stood at the edge of the land Thomas had chosen, watching as he hammered the final board into place on the frame of his new house. The sound of his laughter mingled with the calls of meadowlarks, and for the first time in years, Sadie felt the world settle into its proper place. Thomas wiped his brow and grinned at her. "You know, I never thought I'd have a place of my own again, not after everything. But here I am, thanks to you." Sadie smiled, her heart full. "It's not just me. You did this, Thomas. You chose to stay. You chose to build something new." He set down his hammer and came to stand beside her, looking out over the land. "I'm glad you found this place, Sadie. I'm glad you found Clint, too. He's a good man." She blushed, glancing down the hill where Clint was helping Hank string lanterns between the trees for the evening's celebration. "He is. I never thought I'd love again, not after Otis. But Clint, he makes me feel alive, like I belong." Thomas nudged her gently. "You do belong, and you deserve every bit of happiness you found." As dusk fell, the townsfolk gathered beneath the lanterns, tables laden with food and music drifting through the air. Sadie moved through the crowd, her hand in Clint's, her heart light. Everywhere she looked, she saw faces that had once been strangers but now felt like family. Mrs. O'Malley with her quick wit, Mrs. Jenkins with her endless baskets of bread, and even Clara Mayfield, who offered a genuine smile and a nod of respect. Clint pulled Sadie aside as the fiddler struck up a waltz. "Dance with me?" he asked, his eyes shining in the lantern light. She laughed, letting him lead her onto the grass. "You know I have 2 left feet, Sheriff." He grinned, pulling her close. "That's all right. I'll keep you steady." They moved together, the world fading away until it was just the 2 of them beneath the stars. Clint brushed a strand of hair from her face, his voice low and full of promise. "I love you, Sadie. I want to spend the rest of my days making you happy." She looked up at him, her eyes bright with tears. "I love you, Clint. I never thought I'd find a home again, but I found it in you." He kissed her, slow and sweet, and the crowd erupted in cheers and laughter. As the night wore on, Sadie stood with Clint and Thomas, watching the lanterns sway and the stars wheel overhead. She felt the weight of the past lift from her shoulders, replaced by hope and belonging. She had faced loss and loneliness, but she had found love and family in the wild heart of the West. Clint squeezed her hand, his voice soft in her ear. "You're home, Sadie. Will you marry me?" She smiled, leaning into him as the music played on. "Home," she whispered, knowing at last that she had found both her place and her heart in Eagle Springs, where love was as wide and enduring as the western sky. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more captivating tales. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and God bless. See you in the next video.